themes that I see or things that I notice on my journey is funny. I should use the word journey because it comes from writing with like for the Chotro series, right? They usually come with inscriptions either on the back or in front. So it's like everywhere you look, there's some kind of a message, there's some kind of a reminder.
And it's usually religious, right?
Mostly religious.
So Christian.
Exactly.
So the one behind us here is man no be God?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like that stark reminder that you should never forget. And one image from that series was also a truck that was like parked, a lone truck parked with the inscription of God is watching. So for me, it was funny because it's like the headlights were looking at me and telling me something. So it's those moments or those philosophical moments that spring out, I guess, when I'm in the space, when I'm creating, or when I'm just randomly just being myself.
Well, let's do it the way. So let's go with the Chotro.
All right. So Chotro, I mentioned. Chotro, I know.
Those Jamaicans in the audience. Chotro is like a minibus, right?
It's a minibus that's a public transport medium, relatively cheap, gets you where you need to be quickly if there's no traffic. I mean, you always have to find some kind of entertainment because it's not always ideal. Because one, I've noticed, or at least some of the trips that I've been on, it's either you're with your friends or you're in a space with people you know nothing about. So anything could happen, but that's what adds to the joy of it, right? Because all of you are in that space commuting together. You are a community in that space until you get to where you need to get off and all of that. So that really stands out for me, aside the fact that they always come with inscriptions on them. So think about that kind of journey as well, right? So yeah, Chotro for me is that. It's that point of convergence where people come from all walks of life, for whatever reason, going wherever it is that they're going, that you all share in that space and that moment. If there's something on the radio, you all listen to it together. You all laugh. If there's something funny, you all like, it's something. You need to experience it. It was an amazing trip. I got to meet people. I got to get pictures of the fort. Is it Battenstein? I think it's one of the relics that remain, stark reminders of the history that we all share. And
what's that history?
Well, I would say colonization is one, and there are points that are always there to remind us, and like there's always some kind of reinforcement. That a sense that you get when you see it, it's there, right? And it's hard to ignore, and we still live with it today. So
there's a physical presence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even to juxtapose that against, you've seen the one with Beach Boys against the Cape Coast Castle. You can see the playfulness at the bottom, but behind it, that huge looming stark reminder again. So for me, that's
sorry, for folks who don't know, what does the Cape Coast Castle remind one of historically?
Historically, that was the point where slave trade took part in that location. There was one door that says door of no return, and obviously we all know what that means at this point. But yeah, for me, I grew up there, right? It was a part of me. I would see tourists come in and visit and see people who were really touched, and there's so many things, so many ways to look at it, right? But ultimately, for me, it's where I grew up. And to capture that is me sharing a part of where I grew up and what it's like on a normal Sunday afternoon, for example. So for that, that's what that means to me. There are two others that are actually they are still in the Beach Boys series, but they are from Jamestown in Accra. While I was working in corporate, I had the privilege of preparing a day tour for our group executive for comms. He was visiting for our annual retreat, those things, right? And for me, he decided he would have a day where, because he's also a photographer, so the two of us would just go on a photo walk and take pictures, and that was what came out of that as well. If I'm to move on to directly what's ahead, when you enter
So,
through
so the Jamestown images are the ones of the boys
in the water. Exactly. There's one, the boy almost going in that point.
Was that the single image? The
Yes.
single one?
Yes.
Was that almost drowning?
No,
No?
he was just,
Almost.
the series would show him standing on this. I know, the cinema of it all. Yeah, so he was actually standing on a little, like a stand of sorts where they usually just play, get on there and jump. So a few of those are up at band as well, but that's ultimately what it is again. A normal day, a normal afternoon in Accra on the beaches, you're bound to encounter such experiences.
So, Chocho and Jaguar.
Yes. So Jaguar is from the same day as the day I got Repose. I spent an afternoon with my friend Frank, who unfortunately passed last November. But in that moment and in that space, it was him, Frank, our model, I'll call him Morpheus, and we do photo walks or just invite a model to work with and practice, right? And that's how we're able to capture these moments. But specifically for Jaguar, right? The funny story is the location that we chose to do that shoot, it was something of an abandoned auto mechanics shop. But the interesting thing with that location was it was just filled with decaying luxury vehicles. Okay. So there's, I quite remember one that was actually like a white Chevy Corvette and several Jaguars. So it was interesting for me that in that space, the fleetness of it all, if I should use that word, like it's all here, it's all temporary, but sometime in the future, it will probably be dust. Yep. So that's what, exactly. That's how it spoke to me. So yeah, those images from that series is about that.
Let's talk about Repose.
Okay.
We had a whole conversation about Morpheus.
Yes.
What was this? I don't remember this.
So Morpheus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, it's either a Greek god of dreams.
Oh, yes.
So for this to look like that, right, it's like in a dream state.
Yes. So the image of Repose is the far corner here with the beautiful young man on the gravel. And in the series, there were images of the model with his eyes open. And for whatever reason, I felt it was important to just choose the images with his eyes closed.
I think you should tell us why.
I think I talk about it in the bit in the front there, the essay. It's that piece around interiority. So it's around not having the subject of the image be engaging with you. They're not looking at you. They're actually thinking, whatever they're thinking, they're dreaming, whatever is happening within them, and it's not about necessarily engaging you or centering you as a viewer, whereas sometimes when images are looking straight at you, there's that kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
So all the images I selected were images of him with his eyes closed. And then we were talking, and you said that his name is Morpheus, and Morpheus means, say it again?
The god of dreams.
The god of dreams.
Yes. Well, at least that's what I gathered from the Matrix series. If I'm a huge Matrix.
One of the 100?
I am a huge Matrix buff, so please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to Gold Chain.
Okay.
Which image is a Gold Chain?
These ones over here. Technically, the equipment I used, Nikon. That was like the first time I had started using Nikon, but I also realized it also has its great effects that it gives. But for this particularly, right, it was a work assignment trip to Takoradi. I was doing some work for a hotel that I got to stay there and like just be there and photograph, and it was fun. I know. And he and his friends, I guess they had come from Accra or something. They had just pulled up. They were all out in the parking lot and just having a jolly good time.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, wow, what's happening here? Let me go find out.
Okay.
And one thing led to the other, and yeah.
One thing led to the other?
conversation.
Okay.
How are you doing? What's happening? And just being in the moment with them.
Clarifying for the audience.
I know. So that's how it happened, right?
Okay.
So it was good. We became friends. We actually went on to actually do short video documentaries of what was happening there, but my card got corrupted somehow, so I lost that. That was terrible. But yeah, we'll get to that. For these images, right, I was working then, I had just gotten a Leica Deluxe 109. That's what I used for the video and some of the stills, and for Malcolm as well. But these images that you see before us were with the D700, which is a Nikon. It's great because one, it's full frame, and I think we can tell by the depth of it all and some of the bokeh in there. And obviously how sharp the gold chain is, because that's really like, I don't know if the paper added to it too, because I was actually excited. I was telling Kathy, one of the docents, about how the images were just so stark and it just popped out, and probably it's because it's the paper. I'm not used to seeing my work this printed on this kind of...
It's striking, and particularly in contrast to the skin.
Exactly.
I mean, it could be an ad. It could be an advert.
Maybe I learned that from corporate. But yeah, some of that, it ties into the work I do. I try to strive for that perfection. So one dream of mine, right, is actually to have work on billboards that's ads, but they're actually not like photoshopped and they are real. So let's hope we see that day soon.
And the final series, and the series behind us in the corner here, which is among my favorite.
I know.
And
mine
that
too.
portrait of Kofi on the single image on the wall is the image I want for my home. So talk about this series. And then this is series. One of the things about this series is studio work.
Yep. So for the Emmanuel series, I did the 3-point lighting. I had a whole strobe set and everything. But for this, I had just one lamp. That was me being minimalistic, using what I have to create what I want. So if it's not daylight, it's some kind of artificial lighting that's available. So if you'll see, right, that slit is actually the light's hood, and behind is Kofi. And this, or behind you, would be the actual image without showing what was part of the process of making the image. So that's like the final product, but these are just a playfulness of the creative process.
So it's Kofi and the light or the
Yes.
what's it called, the lamp?
Yes.
Becomes like a sort of a graphic.
Exactly.
Yeah, and an object behind which he can hide, he can engage or interact. That sort of that illuminates but also obscures.
Exactly.
And it's beautiful and very graphic. So I love this. I love this corner.
Yep. So it's one light source. I know it's sometimes you have to break rules.
Yeah.
And sometimes the effects are really, really nice.
Yes. I held off on umbilicus. So umbilicus is the biggest image in the show. It greets you as you walk into the gallery space. And the question for me around umbilicus is kind of obvious. It's striking not just for the size of reproduction and the texture that you capture in the skin of the subject, and somebody had described in the opening as like the perfect belly button. But for those who know a bit about film history and photography, some folks would think of the work of Robert Mapplethorpe, and he did a piece called Belly Button. And so that got me thinking about influences. Do you know that image?
I know of Robert Mapplethorpe, and obviously he played a huge role in my photographic process in that I found out once a while back that he passed a few, like a month or so after I was born.
Okay.
So a point in my life, in probably high school or in the university, right, while gathering and amassing as much knowledge as I could. He came into my view, and a lot of his work I found very, very striking, and very, very, I would say interesting in the sense that I wasn't used to seeing images like that. So right there and there, it left a mark that I sought to express as well.
Okay.
In that, yeah. So belly button, I would have to see it, but
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's.
Google it.
I will. I will.
And so for people who don't know, Robert Mapplethorpe was a really significant American queer photographer. And he focused a lot on bodies. And he is famous as a white photographer for focusing on black male subjects. He actually had a body of work and a book that was published, I think, called The Black Book. And it's very kind of contested work because it brings up this piece around power dynamics between the white photographer, the black subject, the relationship, and agency are things that come up with the work of Robert Mapplethorpe. But I just thought it was interesting that
to see it here, it's like the other way around. But
yeah. So when Kofi talks about the work, that's the work that you're talking. So it's maybe some of the images from the Black Book.
Yes, there is an influence there, definitely.
Okay. And what are some of your other influences? I mean, in terms of this body of work, but just
generally
in
and
terms of your practice.
Yep,
call some names.
Absolutely. The name I would be able to instantly call right now is James Barner.
Okay, James Barner.
Yes.
Tell us about James.
For James, I call him Uncle James when we chat on Facebook because
you and James have a
you know, his work of sharing with me and with the world the generations that were before me, that really left a mark in that his work is like really outstanding and what they mean to the future generations who will get to experience his work and that indelible mark that he's left or he's leaving, that for me really stands out. As a photographer, as a photographer, right, if you're able to do your work diligently, like keep doing it every time, like if it's, for me, right, it's not only like a calling, right, it's something that I have to do. Right. So to see that he's done it and done it so well, it makes it possible and make me know that, yes, I can also probably get to that stage. So that's a huge inspiration for me.
So just hang on a sec. So Band a number of years ago did a James Barner show. And so James Barner is a Ghanaian photographer. How old is he now?
He'll be 93 next month.
Okay. And you talk about documented generations, so documenting images of Ghana from probably the 50s.
Yes.
And then he also...
Through to the UK.
And then he traveled to the UK.
Yes. So in a way, our lives are kind of similar. So that inspiration, I can't really go without mentioning. So yeah, he's a huge inspiration for me.
Have you shared your work with him?
Usually what I'll share is over the phone, right? But yeah, that's the kind of conversations we have. But I'm looking for the day where I get to actually meet him and have that conversation. So we'll see.